I studied in my college in Fafipa. It's a local college in my hometown. Uh, so after I graduated from high school. I spent 1 year studying to enter in some college, and I was approved to go to this college. I went to the history. I was going to study history because it was the subject I more liked in school. I didn't wanted to be a doctor, nor to be a lawyer, nor to be engineer. Like my family wanted me to do some kind of this, but I didn't like it. I preferred to study something I liked. So I began. The first year was okay, but I began to have some trouble with my teachers, the quality of education, the structure of the college wasn't very good. The library was a chaos. Very few books without absolutely no organization. The teachers, like, they came very late to class, and you couldn't have a debate with them because they were very close-minded. All my teachers were Marxists, communists. Only with one or two of them you could have a debate, a dialogue. They were open-minded, but most of them, they weren't. If you told them, no, I don't think this is right, they would say, no, it is, it is. And I began to have trouble, and I began to lose interest in college after the first year. So a couple of years later, I decided to drop. I didn't want to finish. Mostly because the only thing I could work after graduating was to be a teacher, a history teacher. And I really didn't want to be a teacher because a teacher's life is very difficult in Brazil. The pay is very small, you have no quality of work. I wanted to do some other things. And also I was having trouble with two teachers especially. And I just thought it would be better for me if I dropped college and did something else. Well, the most people in Brazil is Catholic, but they don't practice a religion. But it's not like everybody. There is no law in Brazil saying that people has to be Catholic. There is no official religion. People can believe or disbelieve in wherever they want. And my teachers, all of them, when they were young, they had because they grew up in a time in Brazil was a military dictatorship, and because they were against the dictatorship, they began to get into these movements that fought the dictatorship, and most of these movements were leftists, Marxists and communists. So they just stuck with this ideology when they went to college, and they only read. Brazil, for more than 20 years, from 64 to 86, 88, I think, it was ruled by a military dictatorship. And most people fighting these dictatorships were communists, like they were trained in Cuba and Russia. So they are trying to destroy one dictatorship, a capitalist dictatorship, to make a communist dictatorship. So it's very When you think about the Islamic system, the Islamic political, economical, and social system, if the people studied it, and they implemented the system, instead of going from one extreme to the other extreme, then always going to one extreme to another and never having a balance, they would find, I believe, they would find a very balanced way of life to guide the political and economical and social lives of a society. Because the most advanced society, uh, especially in terms of spiritual life, was the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we study this time, if we study the time of the four first Khilafah and the lives, the time of the big Islamic governments, the big Islamic empires like Salahuddin Ayyubi, the Ottoman Empire, and people try to implement this in their countries instead of going from one extreme, materialism, capitalism and socialism. I think the world could have a better future. Yeah, after the university, I stayed 1 year without, not 1 year, I stayed a couple months without studying, without job. Then I began to work for my municipal government. There was official job that 2 years ago I had applied, but there were no vacancies. And a few months after I dropped college, I was called. I thought they would never call me to work, but they called me to begin to work. And I was placed to work in the job agency of my city. And so that was my job. I was responsible for basically two functions. To search jobs for other people and also to apply for their unemployment insurance. So if a person wanted a job, he was unemployed, he would come to me, to the office of the job agency. I would do his paperwork, his abilities, his education, and I would search if there was a vacancy, if there was a job that matched his professional abilities, and try to help him to get this job. And I would also apply for people unemployment insurance. Somebody was fired from his job. I would check the paperwork to see if he had rights to the insurance. So that was my job. I worked there for 1 year and 2 months. When I was 10 years old, was the first time I went to Spain. So because my family side from, my father was Spanish, and my mom, my father, and they wanted to go to Spain. My father wanted to see his relatives and show his land, show his, from where he came from, to me and to my mom. And I was like, when I saw the old Islamic palaces and mosques, and the people told me about the Islamic past in Spain, I was very interested. I liked it very much. I liked to visit the palaces of the Muslim emperors of Andalusia, and I liked when people told to me about this, and I asked people about this. This was my first contact with Islam. And after this, when I returned back to Brazil, I began to read. After a few years, though, I kept searching. If I liked to read about this, to ask people about this. I asked in school, I asked my history teachers if they know about this, if they could give me a book about this. I wanted to know more about this, about the Muslims. Was Then, when I was 15 years old, I went back to Spain. Now I was older and more serious. And when I went back and saw again all those monuments, and I searched to I wanted to know more about them, about these people, and I began to research more, who they were, from where did they came from, where they believed, why they came from so far from the Arabian Peninsula to Spain.